Theoretical recap. Git is a distributed version control system that tracks changes in files over time. Every project managed with Git lives inside a repository, repo, which stores the full history of modifications. Understanding a few core concepts is essential before touching the command line. A clone is a full local copy of a remote repository. When you clone a repo, you download its entire history, branches, and files onto your machine. From that moment, your local copy is independent but can synchronize with the remote, called origin, at any time. A commit is a snapshot of your working directory at a specific point in time. Think of it as a labeled save point. Each commit carries a unique hash, SHA-1, a timestamp, the author's identity, and a message explaining what changed. A good commit message is short, imperative, and meaningful. Add authentication module is good, stuff is not. The mental model. Remote repo clone local repo edit files stage changes, git add, commit, git commit, push back to remote, git push. Common mistakes beginners make: committing without a meaningful message, forgetting to stage files before committing, nothing gets committed without git add, and confusing the working directory with the staging area, index. Another frequent error is cloning with HTTPS when SSH keys are already configured, causing authentication loops. Mini example. You clone a repo, create a file called notes.txt, run git add notes.txt, then git commit madd initial notes file. The file is now part of the repo history. Workshop brief. This workshop puts into practice the Git foundations introduced in the previous chapter, very high-level introduction to Git as the foundation of the pipeline. You have already set up your virtual machine and are familiar with the DevSecOps pipeline structure. Now you will get your hands dirty with actual Git commands on a real repository, working inside the secure lab environment you prepared earlier. The goal is not just to execute commands, but to understand what each command does and why it matters in a security-oriented delivery pipeline. Objectives. By the end of this workshop, you'll be able to clone a remote Git repository onto your local virtual machine, inspect the repository's history and structure using basic Git commands, create, stage, and commit meaningful changes with properly formatted commit messages, reflect on how version control supports traceability and auditability, 2 pillars of DevSecOps, and identify at least one situation where a missing or poorly described commit could create a security blind spot in a pipeline. Step-by-step instructions. Step 1. Environment check. Open a terminal inside your lab virtual machine. Confirm that Git is installed and configured by checking the version and verifying that your global username and email are set. If they are not, configure them now. These identity fields are embedded into every commit you create, so accuracy matters here. In a professional context, a commit with no author identity is a traceability failure. Step 2. Clone a repository. Choose a public repository to work with. You may use a repository provided by your instructor, or, if none is specified, use the official OWASP WebGoat repository, https://github.com/webgoat/webgoat, as it is directly relevant to the security themes of this course. Clone it into a dedicated working directory on your VM. Inspect the cloned folder. Identify the hidden Git directory and understand its role. Do not delete or modify it. Step 3. Explore the history. Use Git commands to browse the commit history of the cloned repository. Identify the 5 most recent commits. Note their hashes, authors, dates, and messages. Reflect on what makes a commit message useful or useless from an auditing perspective. Write a short personal note in a text file on your machine, summarizing your observations. You will need this for your submission. Step 4. Make your own commits. Inside the cloned repository, create a new file named securitynotes.md. In this file, write at least 3 observations about the repository you cloned, things that seem security relevant, anything surprising in the commit history, and 1 improvement you would suggest to the commit message practices you observed. Stage this file and commit it with a clear, professional commit message. Then, modify the file by adding a section titled Next Steps with 2 concrete actions you plan to take in this course. Stage and commit this second change as a separate, distinct commit. You should end up with exactly 2 new commits authored by you. Step 5. Verify and reflect. Run a git log command to display the last 5 commits in a compact, 1-line format. Confirm your 2 commits appear correctly with your identity and your messages. Take a screenshot of this output. It is part of your deliverable. Then write a short reflection, minimum 150 words, in a text file or directly in your securitynotes.md under a reflection section, addressing the following questions. Why does Git's immutable commit history matter in a DevSecOps pipeline? How could a compromised Git history represent a security risk? What would you do differently if you were working on a team rather than alone? Advice and tips. If you encounter authentication issues when cloning, check whether the repository uses HTTPS or SSH and make sure your credentials or SSH keys are correctly configured. If you are behind a corporate proxy inside your VM, you may need to set Git's proxy settings. If Git log floods your terminal, press Q to exit the pager. Do not worry about pushing your commits back to the remote. You likely do not have write access to a public repo, and that is perfectly fine for this exercise. Everything valuable happens locally. Focus on quality over quantity. 2 well-crafted commits are worth far more than 10 meaningless ones. Reread your commit messages before finalizing them as if a security auditor will read them tomorrow, because in a real DevSecOps environment, they will. You are allowed and encouraged to consult all previous course chapters, the official Git documentation, https://gitscm.com/doc, and any other internet resource you find relevant. You may discuss the exercise with peers or ask for help, but the reflection and the commits must be your own work. Submit your work before the deadline expires. Your submission must include a screenshot of your Git log output showing your 2 commits, and your securitynotes.md file containing your observations, your next steps, and your reflection.